I'm still waiting for my balls to drop, so in the meantime I decided to read another teen romance book for girls called What I Thought Was True.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So this book, despite being labeled as a romance, is really more of just like a standard drama story. Not really in a bad way. Like, it's not generic, I wouldn't say, but it is a pretty normal just drama story. It's like a slice of this person's life. There's some stuff that happens, and it's pretty realistic for the most part. And I enjoyed just reading about her struggles and her accomplishments. So I would say that, yeah, this is actually a pretty decent book. It's not as cute as something like Love, Hate, or Other Filters, and, you know, it doesn't make me feel all fuzzy inside or sad or anything like that, but it was just a nice, neat little book. Now, the summary of this book is a little bit misleading, because it says that it's about a girl named Gwen who lives on this island called Seashell Island, and that's like a tourist island, which, you know, completely dependent on outside money. The people there are all really poor, and she really wants to just leave, but then one summer there, a rich boy that she hooked up with a couple of months earlier, and she kind of knows him from school, takes a job there, and so she has to spend more time around him, even though she feels it's really awkward, and she kind of likes him, but also, you know, just like standard teenager stuff. But that summary is kind of misleading, to be honest. Like, that is one subplot in the book, is the relationship between Gwen and Cass, and, you know, that's a good subplot and all, but there's also a bunch of other stuff going on there in Gwen's life. Like, there's Gwen's relationship with her father and all the issues that's causing. There's the fact that Gwen's cousin and her best friend are currently dating, and they're having their own issues there. There's Cass's relationship with his best friend and some of the tension that causes with Gwen because Gwen doesn't like him. There's the fact that Gwen's younger brother is mentally disabled and she'll probably be taking care of him until she dies, and the fact that she has to deal with that. There's Gwen wanting to escape the poverty that the people in the island are stuck on. There's a lot of different things all going on here. And really, that's the book at the end of the day. It's not a plot with a couple of subplots thrown in like most books. It's just a bunch of subplots all strung together. And that might sound bad. I don't think it is. Because, like I said earlier, this is really just a slice of this girl's life. It feels like this is happening to a real person, almost. Like you can imagine pretty much everyone in this book feels like a real person. You know, Gwen feels like a real teenage girl. You know, she has some self-esteem issues and some confidence issues and all that. But at the end of the day, she's a fairly normal person. You know, she has trouble communicating, but once she realizes what she needs to do, she gets her ass in gear. Like, it's not melodramatic, you know? Like, and that has its own set of issues, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but really it is just nice to see something like this once in a while. Something where it's not cheesy and romantic, which means that, yeah, it doesn't have the super high highs or super low lows of more melodramatic things, but it's nice to just see, you know, this is realistic. Now, going into this book, I heard that there were going to be some really dark elements to it, and I was kind of excited to read that. There really aren't. You know, I think the darkest parts that it really goes into are, again, Gwen's younger brother being mentally disabled, and, you know, they don't specify what exactly. It seems to be, like, just severe autism, but I don't know, I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to spread that around, but, again, he's mentally disabled somehow, and she's going to be taking care of him forever. And by the end of the book, a lot of these issues really aren't resolved, you know, and I don't think that's bad, because, again, in real life, your problems aren't always neatly wrapped up. In fact, most of the time they aren't. Like, again, she's going to be taking care of her brother forever, and her relationship with her dad isn't great. You know, she doesn't hate him, you know, but they also don't have any sort of reconciliation by the end. So I rambled on about that for a minute, but let's talk about the negatives real quick. So like I said, this book is just a string of subplots all put together. And, you know, what that means is that some of these subplots have resolutions, which and not always like super neat wrapped up resolutions, but resolutions nevertheless. But then others don't. And like I said, that's realistic, but it also it leaves it feeling kind of hollow. You know, you want to after reading this book, you like most of the characters, and you want to see them move past some of the things that have been holding them back before, and that doesn't happen. So I'm not going to pretend that that's not disappointing, or that certain parts of this book made me feel like I was wasting my time. Especially because it's pretty slow-paced. You know, there's large sections where not a whole lot happens, and a lot of it is taken up by just long flashbacks, too. So that's pretty annoying. And that also means that there's really no sort of emotional stakes, and there's no climax to this book. You know, like, in a regular romance, there will be some stakes to it, like, oh, will they or won't they is usually a big one, but there's other stuff mixed in there sometimes, like if it's a romantic adventure story, then it'll be like, oh, will they or won't they, and will they be able to save the world, or, you know, whatever that is. But in this book, it doesn't really have that, because most of the subplots are wrapped up by the end, and so at the end, they just sort of try and have this one thing with Gwen's cousin that makes it seem like, oh, some shit's going on there, but then that just sort of solves itself, and it turns out there was never really a problem to begin with. And even if the climax itself had been better, there was no real build-up to it, because, you know, it's not a plot where they're working towards one end goal. So, yeah, that's pretty... it leaves the ending feeling really hollow. And another aspect of this book that has pretty positive and negative parts to it is just the prose, the way it's written. Because a lot of it, like, it's told from Gwen's first-person point of view, right? And a lot of it is great. You know, you see her personality and her wit come through while she's talking, but it doesn't feel like it's layered on too thick. It doesn't feel like every other line is trying to be sarcastic and funny, you know? But you still understand that, yeah, Gwen has some personality, and she's bad at communicating with people, and yada yada yada. And so, you know, that's great. But then there's also long parts where the description isn't that great, and also, like I said before, a lot of this book is flashbacks, and rather than having, like, a break and then going into a flashback, or having the flashbacks all be in italics or something, like most books do, this one sort of will have Gwen in sort of a stream of consciousness way just immediately go into a flashback, and sometimes it's hard to even tell when it transitions. Like, a lot of times I was several paragraphs into the flashback before I realized, like, oh, hey, this is a flashback. So that's annoying, to say the least. Like, that's a really big problem if your reader can't quite figure out what's going on until after it's already partway done. So that's really all there is to say. This is a simple book when you get down to it. There's not a whole lot of complex plots or characters or anything, but it's really realistic. It shows a real slice of life, and it shows how people live in this certain segment of society that we don't really talk about all that much. And would I recommend it? Yeah, I guess if you're looking for a sweet romance or something, then yeah, this might be up your alley. But if you want something a little more melodramatic and a little more over the top, which, let's be honest, most romances are, then maybe this won't be enough for you. For me, it was fine. And for other people who might like some more realism and just looking at a little slice of this person's life, then go ahead. This will probably be great. But for the rest of you, you can definitely just skip this one.